Yeah, like I said before, and I was
Hey.
on last time, I was
Oh
hoping to
no,
have
yeah,
a
no.
patch.
We're gonna get into all that. Like,
Yeah, I got my
we
patch on the
know
hat and everything.
we know what we're getting into when we welcome Jason Jones to the late night happy hour. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky, LA's own Jason Jones, who works up in Sacramento, covers the Kings for the Athletic, the Kings in the NBA. But as you can tell, roots in LA. Oh, there goes Andy. Andy's done with it. You okay, Andy? You gonna stick around? Well, now he's getting his audio back. Anyway, Jason, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just trying to enjoy a quasi off day today, and the ups and downs of the Kings, and it's they play well for a while. Everyone goes crazy. They're gonna make the playoffs. They have a few bad games. They want to fire and trade everyone. So typical
Typical
fandom.
NBA fans. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we definitely want to get into that because I know, and I feel bad. You mentioned it's a rare night off, and I was like, we're looking around, and we get in the thick of the NBA season, and you see like guys have game nights. It's hard to work. You got to write and all that kind of stuff. And so we say, oh, the Kings aren't playing on Monday or Tuesday. Let's bug Jason and see if we can get him to use one of his
Oh,
rare off nights.
see, this is no problem though. If it was during the day, that'd be different. But right
Mhm.
now, I mean, kids are in bed. I'd be doing nothing but watching TV right now anyway.
Awesome. Well, cool. We appreciate it. Andy's having audio trouble. That's why he keeps dropping out. But
No
like,
problem.
we'll definitely get into the Walton stuff because I can't figure like any King season. I can't quite figure out what exactly is happening up there. And every time I think to myself that Luke Walton is surely not going to make it through the season, the Kings win like 7 of 8, and then I think surely Luke Walton's going to be coach of the year, and then they lose 5 straight, and so I can't
Mhm.
figure that out. Want to get into it, but did you catch some of the end of the Phoenix game, the Phoenix Nets
Yeah, I
game?
caught a little bit of that. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, James Harden is still pretty good at basketball.
You've seen, you guys just played them, so that's the next game actually for the Lakers. A little of the air coming out of that bubble with AD not playing, but big picture, obviously, what this game on Thursday represents is massive. What do you think? Andy and I have been debating the Nets since they made the Harden deal. What do you think of them?
I mean, they remind me a lot of those Nash type Phoenix teams. They can score with anybody, but they'll also let you stay in the game because they're not exactly gonna they're not gonna shut you down. So they're gonna because even last night, even late to the Kings game, they've got the second unit in, and those guys cut a 28-point lead like the 12. And these are all backups playing, so they're going to let you stay in the game.
Right.
But if they're all to beat them, you got to be able to score. But it's almost like you look at even when they lost to Cleveland a couple of times. It's not even about can you score. It's like just take advantage of the fact they will let you score. Because most of that game last night against the Kings, they weren't exactly stopping the Kings. The Kings just stopped making shots,
Yeah,
and they kept hitting.
there is a difference. And by the way, happy to have you, Jason. I was having some sound issues. I don't know what was going on, so I had to leave the room, come back in, readjust all my levels. So my official welcome to you as well. When you mentioned those run and gun, fun and gun, 7 seconds or less Suns, as a defensive comparison, what I think is interesting about that though is if you look back at that team when it was at probably their best, the year they went to the Western Conference Finals in like 06, and they might have gone that far in 07 too. I actually think that those teams were better defensively in certain ways than we remember, just because they had Sean Marion, they had Raja Bell, they had Kurt Thomas. Like they had, and we looked at defense a lot differently. Like it was all just points per game. So like they had certain personnel guys. You look at these Nets, the big reason that I just don't buy them getting past a certain point is I don't even know if they have the personnel to play really or even solid defense. Forget really good, just solid. Even if they're dedicated, even if they all really want to do it, I don't think they have the pieces.
Yeah. When I'm watching them last night, it's just like, okay, Kyrie's never exactly been a lockdown guy. I think James is a better defender than he gets credit for, but his best position defensively may be guarding bigs in the paint because he's strong. But you're playing the Lakers. He's not going to guard LeBron or AD. You play against Denver, he can't guard Joker. So they're just and then you get KD. KD's shown he can be a part of a good defensive team like he was in Golden State, but he also had Draymond, he had Iguodala with him, and he could kind of freelance probably a little bit more than he can now. And they've got what's left of DeAndre Jordan as their one big.
Left of DeAndre
I didn't.
Jordan.
That sounded really mean.
No, but I understand. He's not DeAndre Jordan today. Is not the defensive stopper that he was with the Clippers.
You meant, Jason, what's left of him in the nicest, most complimentary way possible.
Yeah. This is not All-Star game DeAndre Jordan.
Correct.
4 years ago. This is DeAndre's been around the league Jordan. So I don't know. As much as I think they can score on anyone, I just don't buy them winning a championship unless they can somehow get some defensive players in there to go with those guys.
So really, that gets to Andy's point. It's not so much willingness as it is personnel. Given how good that offense can be, we saw it tonight. They outscored Phoenix in the fourth quarter, 40-24, and that's without Kyrie, that's without KD. How good does the defense need to get? Where is the line on the roller coaster? You want to go and you just need to be this tall to ride the ride?
They got to be. It's hard to say because they score so well. I don't know if you put a number on it. I just think they got to be able to get stops, at least maybe like a 6-minute stretch, of a quarter, because they're going to keep scoring more nights than not. It's just, can they play defense for long stretches to get them, get past a good team? Like I said, when I'm watching them last night, the Kings just stopped making shots. The Kings were getting every shot they wanted, and that's not exactly an offensive juggernaut. So if you're playing a really good team, if you're playing a Boston, if they're fully rolling, if you're playing a Philadelphia in the East, Joel Embiid will average 40 on them. They have no answer for them.
Yeah.
I just watched Hassan Whiteside get 25 and 16 off the bench on him.
But and that actually gets to a lot of that sort of skepticism that I have about the Nets, just big picture moving forward. As far as a real contender, it's beyond the personnel too. It's difficult to figure out, okay, what team would they just match up well on paper against defensively? Like when you look around the teams that are really good, what team is the Nets at least? All right, maybe they don't have the best guys out there defensively, but you could say, all right, they can throw bodies at a certain style of offensive player, a certain style of team. I don't know what that answer is either. Like they're not really built. They're not really built to do anything other than just score their asses off.
That's true.
And it's interesting because LeBron. It was funny. LeBron was asked tonight after the game by Dave McMenamin, and they have a good relationship. Dave's covered LeBron for years, so LeBron will give Dave a little bit of shit at times in post game. But he was asking about this team, and Dave phrased it something like, the offensive firepower that we've really never seen before. Really, I think it'd be more 3 isolation players we've never seen before. And LeBron said, do we not remember the Durant, Steph Warriors, with Clay? And he's right, except that team could actually play defense. That team could be a defensive nightmare when they wanted to be. That to me is what really separates the Nets and the Warriors. Is the Nets would have to be, I think, historic offensively in just about every single game of the playoffs to really guarantee themselves or give themselves a really good chance of advancing against really good teams.
Yeah, because no matter who they play, that team's going to feel like they got a chance still. Like they get down 15, they're going to let us back in this. They get down 20, we can get back in this game. They don't. That Warrior team could break your spirit. They'd come out in the third quarter, go on a 25-2 run, and you just knew it was over. I forgot who was saying it. They were saying with that Warrior team, you could play perfectly and still lose by 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jason, that I had flat never thought about in terms of just the psychology of it. I used to talk about the Spurs kind of in that way, the disheartening. They were almost the anti Warriors. Like when they were really good, you'd be playing great. You're like, oh, we're doing good. We're within 5. We're within 5. We're within 8. We're within 2. All that you fluctuate, and then like before you know it, it's like, wait a minute, now we're down 8. and it's between 8 and 11. And wait a minute, how'd they get up to be like 13? Like it's like they're like an anaconda. They just sort of squeeze it out of, as opposed to the Warriors who just suck the life out of you incredibly fast. But that no team would ever feel like they're out of it against the Nets, even if you fall behind. That is a great point. Like the psychology of the playoffs, that matters.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, they can, I could see them putting up 140 and they could still lose because they'll give up 145. I mean, they've done that this season. They've done that already.
Against teams that weren't good at scoring.
Yeah. Like I said, the Kings didn't have a great offensive night. They still put up like 115 or 125 or something like some crazy number, 110, something like that, and they were complaining how bad they played on offense. So, I mean, I just think that team is always, no matter what they do, unless, they got Andre Robertson, but I mean, there's a reason why he was out there.
I actually hope he can make an impact, just because he's been through so much over the last few years of his career.
Yeah.
And like that guy was a really, really good defender before he started having all those injuries. Yeah. So it would be nice to see him make a difference, just because it means he's back to health and maybe can just finish out his career on pretty good terms. But yeah, I mean, they're never going to. It's interesting, the idea of a team that could put up 150 and not frighten you. But I think you actually hit that pretty well.
I mean, there's something intimidating about it, but like I love experiments like this, because I mean, as good as the Steph, Clay, KD threesome was, I mean, you can argue this one's better. Just on a pure offensive level, that this group is better. Just because those guys, I guess, are more versatile than Clay. They can all put the ball on the floor, and Durant is one of those people. It's like,
you've never seen three ISO guys like this together.
No. And the way that Harden's moving the ball, I think about the Lakers. Like, how do they guard AD? Okay, maybe Durant steps it up and does, some, like Durant can and has been a good defender over the course of his career. I just love when you have moments like this in the NBA, where the extremes are so like big. Like this could be like this amazing thing where it's just, they win the finals by winning 143 to 137, which by the way would be wildly entertaining. Or they could lose in the second round easily.
Yeah,
that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's just so wild, just because if they run into a team, say they run into a well-coached Miami team that just slows, isn't a juggernaut on offense clearly, but they'll stick to what they do on defense just to frustrate them enough, and just to keep it close. And does that frustration of, it's the fourth quarter, we've only got 108 instead of 120, and Miami has 105, does that mess with them enough in those close games to where you start seeing things break down? Maybe Kyrie decides, I don't want to be the shooting guard anymore, give me the ball. And I think that team has to run with Harden being the point guard. I mean, I think people forget that when James took off in Houston, it's when D'Antoni put him at the point.
Yeah.
So I think you have to keep him there. But I just wonder if they get into I think Miami would be the perfect type of I'll just frustrate you type matchup. Because they're going to, they're going to do what they're going to do regardless, and they're not going to break from that. And if they get, if you get a Jimmy Butler on a roll and he's just in the one of those guys, and then maybe Bam gets rolling and then it's a tough game, who knows what happens? And now you got Steve Nash, got a coach in a pressure situation, which he's never done before.
Well, like we mentioned, the next game for the Nets, or the next game for the Lakers, I should say, is the Nets. And the Lakers are played their first game without Anthony Davis tonight. It's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. They, after an absolutely shit show first quarter, they managed to get the game together, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go about trying to deal without having a guy of Anthony Davis's caliber. I mean, the guy that really makes this team so different than I think from anyone else around the league. How well equipped do you think they are, Jason, just to offset not having Davis there and to get through this, winning a fair amount of games?
I think they got enough talent to still win a good amount. I worry about them defensively. I just think the games you've seen them without AD, people were complaining, hey, they missed JaVale, they missed I mean, the difference without having that guy around the rim is big. But I mean, you still got LeBron. I think between him, Schroeder, Montrez, they got enough to still win games. I wonder how they'll do against, a Brooklyn, depending on who they have. They didn't have Kyrie tonight, but maybe they have Kyrie back. How do they do against the Utah teams like that? Not having AD, because AD is the one thing no one else in the league has. And that's what makes the Lakers special when they're healthy, because no matter what you do, you have no one has anyone like AD.
Yeah, I mean, at his best, AD is both unique and he's unguardable, and the way that he can affect a game on both sides of the ball, like that versatility and just all the optionality that he offers, it's maybe, saying it's like two LeBrons would be an overstatement, but it's among the closest ways you can have to having two LeBrons on the floor, just in terms of all the different things that you can do.
And you can't, and you can't defend him because you also have the other LeBron. Like no team has. You might have a guy who can guard LeBron. You might have a guy who can guard AD. Nobody has a guy who can guard LeBron, and then another guy who can guard AD.
Right. Yeah, and that's what makes. I wonder how they're going to figure this out. I know I had tweeted a couple of weeks ago. It's been amazing. Watch how Kuz remade himself into this do everything type guy. Maybe he starts scoring more again. Maybe long term this ends up being good if they can find some different things they can do. I don't think it's a thing. I mean, the main thing is you need AD for the playoffs, and you know what? They had 71 days of rest. He's probably earned. He needs some time off. There's no need to rush this thing back with him at all.
We were saying on the Atlanta Lakers. We were saying on the Atlanta Lakers podcast. My hope is that this is actually just one big con by AD. Like, this is just an elaborate scheme to get some rest, to get out of the All-Star game. Like, he's been playing up this whole Achilles thing just because he recognizes, like, man, I don't need this. Like, I had such a quick turnaround. I need to find a legitimate way to get out of this game. And I mean, frankly, I'm hoping that LeBron, like halfway between now and the All-Star game, all of a sudden develops like an elbow problem. Something like that.
A sore back is a good thing. They really, a sore back.
That's good.
Sore back, sore knee. Being sore is always a good way to get around everything.
Back spasms are another one.
You remember back in the day, like when they had the injured list and you have to like come up with a thing to give someone. Back soreness was always a favorite. Stiffness, back stiffness was also something that you saw there periodically. A lot of stiffness going on. But like, how much do these games matter? Because I asked Frank Vogel this question. There are all kinds of things that could happen. They'll run different sets and they'll do this and they'll do that defensively and whatever. All of it goes out the window again once Davis returns, because it's not like, let's say, Marc Gasol took 7 shots tonight. Like, that's ties a season high. It's not like he's gonna, like, if that gets up to 8, 9, 10 a game, or Kuzma settles into something, or whoever it is, it's not like it's not going to snap back and AD is going to take a back seat on either side of the floor. So what can a team, whether it's the Lakers or whoever, when you're missing somebody so important, what can you gain from this time that can stick with you once that other guy is back?
I think you just gain the confidence that you can play some time without him. Like you say, you get to the playoffs and AD fouls out or gets 3 early fouls. That group goes in knowing that, hey, we played 10, 15 games like this. I know where I know where Trez wants to be. I know where Wes Matthews or KCP wants. I know where everything goes, and we don't have to do this. I mean, what's bothered me about the Lakers last year is that when either LeBron or AD wasn't on the court, it was like, what do we do? What do we do? Oh, they're looking for someone to do something. So maybe you get some more reps at that. But like, you're right. When AD comes back, they're not going to say, you know what? Trez has been rolling. AD, I'm going to need you to stop shooting so much because we need to get – we're going to, we're going to run some more stuff and, put you in the background. But I do think that this time can be really beneficial for them just on that. Because, I mean, you normally wouldn't do this during the season anyway. And I think no matter how they finish in the standings, Nobody's going to want to play him, and this is going to be a different type of season. It's not like your traditional home court advantage. So I just think they just got to be healthy, and get to the playoffs.
Well, I mean, this could be a real potential opportunity for Dennis Schroeder in terms of really solidifying what he means for this team, both I think in what he can offer, but just like the value of having him around. Because I think he's been good so far this season, but he was
certainly good tonight.
He was very, very good tonight. That's one of the reasons I bring this up. Like, so far, I don't think he's so much been an impact player as much as he's demonstrated just he's nice to have around, and like there's utility to having him. But, these next few weeks could be really important with him also, because today began the first day where the Lakers and Team Schroeder can start talking about a long-term extension, like for the maximum dollars allowed. Like, from what you've seen of Schroeder, is he somebody that you think you would commit to long-term for the Lakers? I mean, for what's likely going to be a pretty big salary.
I don't. It depends on what the salary is, but I think you commit to him for a couple of reasons. One, I like having another ball handler with LeBron. I think that's why Rondo was so good with him.
Mm-hmm.
I've even talked to Luke and other guys around the league about this. There's this idea that LeBron has to have the ball all the time, but where LeBron really excels is in those moments where he doesn't have to have the ball all the time, and then when he gets it, he can just attack.
Right.
And you got to have a guy who's confident enough to not defer all the time. When I watch Dennis play with LeBron, he doesn't always, he'll get the ball. Sometimes he'll give it to LeBron. Sometimes he won't, and you can just tell that he knows, okay, it's time for me to initiate and, let LeBron go off to the wing. And then I get it back to him later. So I definitely like that idea of having a guy like that. I think he's shown he can help defensively. He's crafty. He can get downhill, and the Lakers don't really have a history of having point guards who can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past.
Are you saying that Derek Fisher was not a downhill player?
Nah, not really. No.
He's among the most downhill they've had in like the last 25 years.
I mean, it's really Van Exel was probably the last of those guys. I mean, I'm not a historian on this stuff. I miss guys. I forget.
It definitely wasn't Smush Parker.
I mean, I think it's what they.
Smush Parker went downhill, but he didn't go downhill. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because remember a few years ago when they traded for Ramon Sessions, and it was like, oh my god, they can run a pick and roll. It was like,
I remember
Ramon Sessions was going to revolutionize what they did in LA. I totally remember that.
I remember.
I think age-wise, I like the fit. I mean, to get him for a first-round pick and Danny Green, I thought was a great move by Rob. So I think you definitely keep him around, especially as long as he's got good chemistry with LeBron and AD, and you plug him in and let him just kind of grow and do what he does. I mean, it's not like he's been in the league forever, but he's not that old.
No, yeah. Oh my God. I mean, we'll get into this later because he was part of the Draymond Green rant and just part of the larger discussion. But I was listening to the group chat on the Ringer, one of their basketball podcasts, and I did not realize Andre Drummond is only 27. That seems insane to me. Like, it feels like he should be like 31 or something.
Yeah, both because he's been around for a while. Yeah, but also Andre Drummond sounds like an old guy name.
Yeah, but he's 27.
That's what they said. I mean, let me look. I mean,
it doesn't seem. I mean, I think Harrison Barnes is like 27 or 28, and it's like,
okay.
Are you kidding? Harrison Barnes played with Tim Hardaway, like the old one.
Yeah, so
that guy's been around forever.
Yeah, so it's crazy to think that Drummond's 27.
Yes, I just looked it up. He's 27. He turned 27, I think, in August.
He's got another good contract left in him, at least one more.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. Like it's always a trip when you hear some of these guys' ages because you forget how young they start and just. You lose this, like it always just seems like they've been around longer than they have, but then you're like, no, that is like 9 years in the league. They just start so young, and some of these guys, just turn 18 when they first get in there. Like Brandon Ingram was like that. Like Ingram was really young when he came into the league. Like Talen Horton-Tucker is he's
younger.
Really
he's
young.
Still younger than like more than half the guys who got drafted this year.
Yeah,
by a lot.
Yeah, and it's just then you realize these guys were born like in 2000. It's like,
well, who said they were talking about tonight was two. Who they played Minnesota was Anthony Edwards, was 2 years old when LeBron made his debut in the league. Two. I mean, come on, man. He was 2.
And there's no way that like a 10-year-old Anthony Edwards is thinking, I'm gonna play against LeBron. Watch.
Oh no, absolutely not.
No, but we always say Bronny is going to retire before LeBron. Like they're gonna spend like 7 years together on the Lakers, and then eventually Bronny's going to have his retirement ceremony, and LeBron is going to attend it, and then he's going to go play his own game.
Right, he's going to play with Bronny the third.
Sector Cruz just asked, how old is Tristan Thompson? Aren't they in the same draft class? I don't know that off the top of my head. Tristan Thompson will be 30 next month. Another guy that seems like he's been around forever.
Yeah, I don't think Tristan and Drummond were in the same class, because I think I'm trying to remember that draft was a draft that had Harrison in it. It had Damian Lillard in it. Maybe Tristan was in that one.
How much college did he play though? He was at Texas, right?
Yeah, he was at Texas. Was it a year?
I don't know. I'm
bad.
I'm
it
really
all
bad
seems
at this
like
game.
It was so long ago now, because wasn't it Tristan and Deion Waiters together? Or
Tristan played. He was the fourth. He played. No. I was going to say he played 643 games in college. That is not. I am looking up the wrong thing in.
Tristan.
Anyway, you guys talk.
Tristan Thompson was in the Kyrie Irving draft class. They were both top 5 picks for the Cavaliers.
That's what it was. Okay.
He played 1 year at Texas. That's very good.
Deion was after that.
Yeah, they were in the same draft class as Kemba Walker, Klay Thompson, the Morai, Kawhi Leonard, Vucevic.
That's a good draft.
Jimmer
Fredette, Tobias Harris. There's actually a fair amount of talent.
This is like the ghost of King's draft past. All those guys that went after the guys they picked.
Jason, aren't they all the ghosts of King's draft?
I mean,
past?
I think the Warriors and Portland are two teams that say, "Thank God we drafted after the Kings," because the Portland got Dame and CJ after the Kings picked. The Warriors got Steph and Clay and Harrison after the Kings picked. So I guess if you want to get a good pick, see where the Kings are and go, you know what? Okay, whoever they don't take, that's the guy we're probably going to like anyway.
That probably solidifies it for you. If you're having any doubt, you're like, God, he seems like he could be great, but there's got to be something wrong with him. You see the Kings don't take him, you're like, nope, there's nothing wrong with him.
And then vice versa. Like you probably feel like, God, I really wanted that guy, but I feel better now because the Kings wanted him too. So clearly they're flawed in some way. Although it seems like it's, De'Aaron Fox is good. I think we can all agree he's a good player. Halliburton looks fantastic.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So is it possible that they're turning at least that part of it around?
Possible. I mean, they're going to have them. I'm so skeptical with it when it comes to them, but they're going to have the Marvin Bagley thing over their head, which is not really Marvin's fault.
No.
He wasn't. It's not his fault, but people are going to. Every time, like I think Marvin missed a couple of games with a sore calf, and the whole, here we go again. He's hurt. I'm like, he has a sore calf. It's okay. He's going to play again, but they're just like the fan base is just so conditioned to believe, okay, here comes the worst. But I mean, they hit on De'Aaron. It looks bad. The only reason that draft looks bad is because they had the 10th pick. They could have taken Bam Adebayo. They could have taken Donovan Mitchell. They trade down for Justin Jackson and Harry Giles.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, and so neither guy, so I mean, there's always going to be the good with them, but then it's like, okay, it was good, but and then
right.
and a lot of their mistakes were honestly just miscalculations over people's feelings. Like even with the whole Luka thing, the whole idea that De'Aaron wouldn't want to play with another point guard. He loves playing with Tyrese Halliburton.
Right.
It was like, no, you should have go ahead and so just the Kings could have took Andre Drummond back in the day.
Maybe they should have asked. It's like the sign and trade with Bogdanovich. Like, did anybody actually ask him if he wanted to go to Indiana or whatever that was?
Milwaukee, yeah,
right. Like, did nobody ask De'Aaron, like, hey, would you want to play with another point guard? I mean, Kyrie looks perfectly happy to let Harden handle the ball, and Kyrie just gets the ball and lays it in the basket or shoots a wide open three. It's great.
Yeah, I remember I talked to De'Aaron about that a couple of years ago. He's like, I like being off the ball. So whenever they had another point guard on the team, he's like, cool, I can, So this whole
I mean, how do you
De'Aaron
guard?
Tyrese thing has worked out perfectly for him.
How do you guard De'Aaron Fox away from the ball? It's impossible.
Yeah, you just you hope maybe he gets tired. He doesn't really get tired. I mean, when he wants to go by you, he can at any point. I mean, I haven't seen anyone who can stay in front of him. I mean, when they played the Clippers with a couple of weeks ago, he just had Kawhi on skates. I mean, I know he's a smaller guy, but that's still Kawhi. It's still a 6'7" guy with that big wingspan, and De'Aaron's like, bye.
Yeah, ironically, he's having an incredible season, and he's made it very clear, please don't select me for the All-Star game. like he's I mean, I don't think he's going to make it just because the competition's too stiff and his team isn't good enough. But he's having a legitimate all-star caliber season.
Until 14 guys pull your LeBron, oh my arm plan. And,
yeah.
Don't
this
show
is going
up.
to be the most family-friendly all-star weekend ever. Everyone's in the hotel. I'm like, yeah, I could see a bunch of guys having a sore knee or a sore back.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a working theory because I mean, I know these guys sometimes have fun during that weekend, and the weekend itself can be fun. The game can be up or down, but there are a lot of these guys that you can tell relish the 5 days off where they can take like a quick jaunt to Cancun or wherever. I've always felt like the guys who earn their way into the All-Star game should be the only ones who don't have to go. Like everybody else should have to work for 5 days, but the guys who are good enough to actually make the All-Star game, they're the ones who should get the vacation. Like that should be the incentive for playing so well throughout the regular season is you don't actually have to do anything over those 5 days. Like you truly get to relax.
Yeah, I remember DeMarcus's first one. He was like, man, they got me doing so much shit this weekend. Like, he wanted to be an all-star so bad. He was like, God. Like, I'm like, what are you doing next? I got to go here, here, and here.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on. I'm glad they give them the extra days off because before, remember, they'd have all that have to be back for a game like on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember before that, like, I think one of Dirk's last all-star games, he was a last-minute replacement. And Dirk was like, I was on my way to vacation when they called me.
Yeah, and it's at least like in a normal year, you get the payoff of like there's some fun shit that goes on, and it's the parties and like at least there are some, and most of the guys are used to it, they could live without it or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's some fun attached to it. Like this year, it literally you're sending people like I don't want to say prison is a little strong, but like you understand what I'm getting at. Like
you're sending them to their dorm room.
Fun.
They're in the
not
dorm.
Gonna be fun.
They're in the dorms in Atlanta. They, outside of going to the arena, you can't do anything else. Like I said, this is a very family-friendly all-star game. I mean, this is the one you definitely bring the wife and the real girlfriend. This is not going to be the party.
Real girlfriend.
This is not going to be the side chick.
No, this is how every all-star game is. I don't know what you're talking about. They've all been like this, honey. So every time we talked about this right at the top. Like every time I look at the Kings, I'm like, oh, they're off to a good start. Luke's going to be at least maybe this is the year Luke kind of breaks through. Then they lose like 13 in a row. I'm like, well, Luke's not going to make it through the season. And then they win like 8 of 9. I'm like, Luke's coach of the year again. And now they're losing again. How likely is it, do you think, that Walton is the coach, we'll say next year?
Next year? See, last week I'd have been like, it's a good chance. This week it's like, I don't know. But I mean, I think the one thing you can, at least this recent stretch, De'Aaron missed a game, Bagley missed 2, and this is not a very deep team. I mean, Luke, they started playing better when Luke basically sent them to play 6-7 guys. So, I mean, they play their starters and they play Halliburton, and then you mix in a little Corey Joseph here and there, a little Hassan Whiteside. That's pretty much their team. And when you got to get past that, it gets ugly.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily want to mix Hassan Whiteside in all the time. Like he's George Sedano, like Sedano, who like he likes to point out, like you mentioned the game he had out of the night. It was like 26, 15, and 5. Whiteside, they lost by like 15. Sedano would say that is a Hassan Whiteside game.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some games like that this year. Then there's a couple of games you're going, oh, this is bad Hassan. You got to get him out the game real quick. Because, I think, whether it's, he's a little sore. He did have a hip thing and a leg thing earlier, and like he's not moving well. And then Hassan is going to do a couple of Hassan things. Like he's going to take a long jumper. I think he took like a step back three one time. It's like he checked his feet and shot the three. And I'm like,
I mean, look, in fairness, we're seeing JaVale do that. We're seeing Dwight Howard do that. Like at some point, Hassan's just going to feel left out.
yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at him. I'm like, you know what? Hey, you're here on a 1-year vet minimum deal. Get your shots up. Why not?
I'm old enough to remember when Andrew Bynum famously decided that he was going to expand his game.
Oh, I remember that too. Yeah. See, Andrew was just ahead of his time. Andrew knew where the game was going.
Yes.
He was like, I'm about to start shooting these now.
He was a visionary. That is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Some of my favorite Lamar Odom quotes were the ones where he always referred to himself as a sportsman.
Or
handsome. And my favorite Andrew Bynum one was that one where I was expanding my game.
Oh God, we miss him.
Yeah, I haven't had anything like that with these guys yet. But I mean, like I said, they were like a 7-8 man team. And you see this every year with teams like them. They've got to get maximum best effort every night to stay in games. And if, they get a little slippage here or there, they're not the same team. I think De'Aaron had 19 and 8 against the Nets. And that was like a bad game for him now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like, it's like we need you like 25 and 11, and Tyrese didn't have a big game either. And they really need everyone to play well. So I think Luke's future a lot of times is going to be dependent on whether or not Tyrese Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox play well. Maybe Buddy Hield starts making more shots again. They just don't have a lot of room for error.
How good a coach do you think he is? Because I know when he started in LA, obviously there's a lot of hype around him. I was very supportive of him initially, and then by the end, you're like, I'm not sure, because like it was so discombobulated anyway that it's not like he had great teams to work with here. And in Sacramento, you could make a similar argument at the very least. So how good a coach do you think he is?
That's the thing. I'm with you. Like he doesn't have a lot to work with, but when I talk to the players about him, they all vouch for him. They all will tell you, even when you got Buddy Hield coming out unsolicited and saying, "Oh, Luke's doing a good job," it speaks to one of the reasons why Vlade wanted him in. Those guys, they like Dave Yeager as a coach. They hated him as a person. They just didn't like being around him personally. And Luke is, I don't know anyone who doesn't like Luke.
Yeah.
So they needed that change up in that locker room, and kind of his style is, I tell him, I said, sometimes you hear Luke talk, if you didn't know any better, you swear Phil was in his ear talking to him and telling him what to say. But, I know last year when they were struggling, I asked Fox about it. Fox was like, no, trust me, he is on our asses in practice. Don't let this guy in the press conference who just kind of says, hey, I'll go look at the tape, fool you. Like, he's on us. And I think this year what's helped, you get Alvin Gentry in there, a guy he knows. And I think you can definitely see the improvement in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think the fact that he decided to go to the shorter rotation shows that kind of his growth as a coach to say, you know what, we don't have time to play around with this 10, here's my best chance at winning. And I thought the year before there was a little more of Vlade would like this, so we're going to kind of go this way. It's like, no, he's got nothing to lose this year. I mean, you got a new GM. No one expects anything of him. So the hell with it, Luke. Do what you want to do. If you want to play 8 guys all year, play 8 guys, because at the end of the day, it's going to be your record.
Yeah, it's funny that it's a little bit of that. That reminds me a little bit of how, I think how Vogel kind of approached last year. It's like, Jason Kidd's standing there. The perception is that he's already, got the knives out and all this stuff. And, in the second game of the season, he put Anthony Davis, started him at center against the Jazz in the second half of that game. And, in hindsight, it doesn't seem like that big a deal to move AD to center. But we spent all preseason talking about how AD doesn't want to play center. AD doesn't want to play center. Second game of the year, he's like, go play center so we can go win this game. And it worked. They blew the doors off the Jazz in the second half of a game that they played very poorly in the first half. And it was a little bit of a stamp of like, if I'm going to get fired and replaced by Jason Kidd halfway through the season, like everyone expects, I might as well do it my way. So you're seeing that. Like, I mean, I hope I like Luke on a personal level, like you say, everyone does. But I was going to ask this question: Are the players in Sacramento the kinds of guys that it matters if they vouch for you? matters if LeBron vouches for you or AD or some of those guys. Does it matter if Buddy Hield vouches for you?
See, I don't know how Monty McNair thinks, because it did with Vlade. It did matter. He was very big about, well, how do you guys feel about this? I don't know. I really don't have a good read on Monty at this point and what he thinks, but I do think, like you said, Luke is kind of like, whatever. I'm not going to, like, Luke is like, I'm not playing Marvin Bagley in the fourth quarter if it's going to cost us points in a tight game.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if his dad goes on Twitter and talks about me, retweets tweets of people calling me an asshole and all this other stuff that is, he's like, look, I got to win games. I don't have time to worry about that stuff. And so yeah, you want to develop guys and all that, but I think it matters that De'Aaron likes them. I think that matters, because I think on this team, like I tell people, when it comes to this roster, the GM likes De'Aaron because he gave him the extension. He likes Tyrese because he drafted him. Outside of that,
so look,
it could go either way. We don't know what Monty's thinking with the rest of these guys.
Well, I mean, to your point, and this is obviously, a no-brainer, but Frank Vogel identified very quickly, my relationship with LeBron and AD is going to be incredibly important, not just for my long-term future with this organization, but my short-term immediate impact. Like, I need those guys buying in immediately in order to get the most out of this season with all these different new pieces. And, I think he benefited from the fact that, LeBron liked him naturally anyway, but I think LeBron was also in a place where, Luke Walton was fired, and there was at least a perception that if LeBron didn't get him fired, he certainly didn't stand in the way of him getting fired either. And
he certainly didn't go upstairs and say, hey, don't do this.
Exactly. So, and at that point, LeBron's first season with the organization, they missed the playoffs. He seemed very disconnected with the team. He hadn't really developed a real relationship with the fans. So I think it was in LeBron's best interest for him to have a good relationship with Frank Vogel as well. But I do think also that Vogel identified the best ways to establish that relationship with those two. And it may seem obvious at times, get along well with your star players, but it's not always easy to figure out the best ways to do it, because otherwise no coach would ever clash with their stars.
Right. And I think if you look at the dynamic with Luke and De'Aaron, like the first year when Luke gets there, he doesn't see a lot of guys necessarily in Sacramento working out. He doesn't get on the phone and say, get out here. I need to see you out here. Like he said, he knows De'Aaron was working out last year, but he never saw De'Aaron. This past summer after the season, De'Aaron's in the facility all the time. He kind of has the idea that, I'm going to stay in touch with you. We're going to communicate, but I'm not going to be overbearing. And that worked for De'Aaron. And even with the whole Buddy thing where Buddy wouldn't take his calls most of the offseason, Luke's attitude was like, you know what? Buddy's still going to come here and play hard. So I'm going to let him have his little space to vent and be angry and, feel like his feelings got hurt because he got benched. But I think the fact that Luke benched Buddy when he did last season, it really turned their season around. And the fact, and I think, probably your best players, if you were in that locker room, you didn't have a bunch of guys coming out behind the scenes saying, we got to get Buddy back in the starting lineup. I mean, those guys saw the issues, that something had to change. And I think in some ways, Buddy came back a better player for him. I mean, he's not shooting the ball well, but now you at least get him saying that, hey, I realize I just can't be a turnstile on defense. Whereas a year ago, he would say nobody plays defense anyway, so why does it matter? So I just think the fact that he's connected with De'Aaron so well is going to help him. I just don't know where Monty is big picture.
You, like everyone, have seen the Draymond stuff, and I'm going to share our screen here. Mm-hmm. I think this sparks one of the more fascinating debates that we've seen in conversations that you can see in a while, because so much of what Draymond talked about, and we'll play a little bit of it, is absolutely, I think, 100% true. And at least in my mind, some of it kind of misses the pointers a little bit, some straw men in there, but it was fascinating to see a player so explicitly go off on some of the double standards. So we'll play a little bit of this here.
To watch Andre Drummond before the game, sit on the sideline, then go to the back, and then come out in street clothes because a team is going to trade him. because when James Harden asked for a trade and essentially dogged it, I don't think there was no surprise or there's no one's going to fight back that James was dogging it his last days in Houston. But he was castrated for wanting to go to a different team, and everybody destroyed that man. And yet a team can come out and say, oh, we want to trade a guy, and then that guy is to go sit. And if he doesn't stay professional, then he's a cancer, and he's not good in someone's locker room, and he's the issue. And we've seen situations of Harrison Barnes getting pulled off the bench. DeMarcus Cousins finding out that he's traded in an interview after the All-Star game. And we continue to let this happen. But I got fined for stating my opinion of what I thought should happen with another player. But teams can come out and continue to say, oh, we're trading guys, we're not playing you.
So, like, just with that stuff, I mean, that's sort of the thrust of it. He's talking about, Andre Drummond essentially being sent home and the kind of the double standard that's there. A player says, I want to go play somewhere else. They can get vilified for that, but a team can basically say, yes, we're not going to play that guy. Like, we're going to trade you. Like, we can talk about this openly, and you just have to sort of suck it up and take it. What do you think he got right in this discussion? What do you think maybe where he might have missed the boat?
I think I'll start where he missed it. The part of the stuff with Harden where he got so much heat it wasn't that he wanted to get traded. It was that camp had started. He's in Vegas and he's in Atlanta, and he's just basically partying during camp,
in a pandemic.
And he comes back and says, "Well, where were you?" "Oh, I was training." James did.
Technically, that might have been true.
Yeah,
just not for basketball.
So, and I think James did some of that.
Got to work out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he definitely. Throwing.
His wrist, his lap.
He's working on his shooting form with his money. Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, I think on that part,
how heavy is a honey bun?
Curling them.
Yeah. So, but I mean, James did some of that to himself, but I do think he, with the DeMarcus thing, I was there when that happened, and it was just funny because that weekend I had written a story about how finally DeMarcus had a drama-free All-Star weekend, and then he gets traded during the game. When Harrison got pulled from the game to get traded, he was getting traded to the Kings. So I mean, I do think it's crazy that you can say
thing to do to someone.
Yeah, come out the game. You're going to Sacramento. But it is a double standard that the team can say, you know what, we want to trade you. You can go ahead and go home. Like if James had come out, he tells Houston, I don't want to be here, and they would have said, you know what, it's not going to work. Just stay home. I think I would have been fine with that, but it just became a damn circus just because you got to be here, and you're watching them play. He's dogging it. He doesn't want to be there. You can just tell, and it's like you said, if Andre tried to play and they're like, no, that's just you see it with Blake in Detroit. We're going to go ahead and sit you down until we figure out what we're going to do with you. I mean, I guess the team has the right to do that, but on the other hand, the players, they know they can't do that. But I think part of the problem with the James example was that he was made out, he was vilified, but James gladly played the villain. Even after the trade, when he goes on Instagram talking about the whole Shaq and the guys attacking another black man who wants to just better whatever he was saying. It's like you had a black coach in Houston who you just screwed over for the last 2 months.
For his first opportunity as a head coach.
So it's like
a lot of dues.
I said, James did a good job of vilifying himself. With other examples, like the DeMarcus one was a good example because people forget 2 weeks before that All-Star game, the Kings had promised him his extension, went over his house and had wine with him to celebrate it, and then they traded him 2 weeks later. So I mean, you do have those things where it's like where the team does whatever it wants to do. So I mean, he said a lot of good. I just think the James example was not the best example. I mean,
Right.
even with a guy like Drummond's playing well this year. He's on my fantasy team. I should know. So he's playing well this year, and it's like, you know what? You're playing so well. We're going to have you sit down till we get something for you. I mean, I understand the team point of view. I don't like it, but I don't know if Andre would want to play for him anyway, knowing that they don't.
This is an interesting thing with Andre Drummond and with Blake Griffin. And I don't know the answer one way or the other, but it's where I think Draymond may have been, I don't want to say straw man because there are examples that back him up, but he may have just been lacking a certain degree of context. We don't know. I mean, or at least I don't know. I haven't seen reporting of it, how much Drummond or Blake Griffin were active partners in coming up with this decision, because both of them may actually prefer the idea of staying healthy, keeping their trade value as high as possible. It's relative with both of them, but you certainly don't want to lower it with an injury, so they could potentially go to a better team without having to give up any money.
It sounds like Blake was on board and Drummond less so, but it's hard for, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And, like I think with Blake, why would he want to keep playing and waste his knees on the worst team in the East?
Right.
Go ahead. Let's go ahead.
And why would Detroit want him to do it? Because if you have any hope of moving him, he's,
which is still going to be tough, even if he were playing well right now, just because that contract is just, they say every contract can be traded, but I don't know how you trade that one. I mean, if I'm Blake Griffin, are you going to trade for Blake and expect him to opt out of that player option? No, he's picking that up. He's not getting that money. He's not getting a contract worth that last year of that deal. So, I don't know.
It's funny, like, because I always a lot of times people are surprised when fans tend to side with management over labor in these situations, because it's billionaires against millionaires, whatever you call it. But like the part that I thought Draymond got wrong is where, he referenced a few times that like nobody ever gives the organization shit. Nobody. Well, I mean, I think that's, obviously, ask a Knicks fan. Like if they give the Knicks shit, ask a
And
Cavs
Draymond
fan.
used that example a lot about a player struggling. How come no one ever calls out the organization? I'm
It happens all the time.
I said, I cover the damn Kings. You think I've ever pointed out the fact that they gave up on Isaiah Thomas for a second-round pick? I mean, you don't think people...
all fans do is
I said, I don't think, he's like, well, how come they never call out the organization? I mean, that's one of his go-tos. I'm like, you're actually wrong about that, because people call out these teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are still, I know, calling out the Lakers for being like, well, you see Ingram and those guys are good now. It's like, well, they got AD, chill. But, but teams get called out for that all the time. I mean, the Phoenix Suns, they were getting drugged for years until, recently.
Right. And then the other part I thought that, kind of wasn't there was like, he kind of made the comparison of, if a team can sit you down and say, we are going to trade you, we don't want you here anymore. Okay. And the player has to kind of, sit there and just kind of take it and be in shape and do all that. And that's true. And if a player says, I don't want to be here and I don't want to play, they're going to be vilified for it. And the team can, but it's because that's what they're being paid to do. It's like, if you want to give the money back, you don't have to play. But if you want to keep the money, you got to play.
Well, where I think Draymond has a point there, because you're right. There's a certain amount of professionalism that just is part of your paycheck. Like in the same way when Draymond said that, Andre Drummond has to go through this situation that, if nothing else in Draymond's mind, is humiliating. I don't know if it's humiliating in Andre Drummond's mind, but he's like, the guy has to stay in shape. He has to stay professional, or else like his career could be jeopardized. You're supposed to stay in shape. Right. You're supposed to be doing the conditioning in the same way that if you were out of the rotation, like the demands for your conditioning don't go down. Like that's just part of,
and they're still paying him.
Right. Where I do think Draymond has a point though, is the reason we're told that you're not supposed to, as a player, publicly demand a trade is because it can be disruptive for your organization. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to avoid something like that. But what the Cavaliers or what the Pistons are doing, which is announcing we are going to trade this guy if humanly possible, why is that not considered disruptive? I think that's something where Draymond, whether he voiced that or not specifically, kind of has a point about a double standard there, because if you're looking to avoid disruption, why is one okay and not the other?
Exactly, especially with Drummond's case when he's having a good year. I mean, it's not like he's not playing well. He's out there having 20 games and tops in the league and rebounding. So he's having a good year. So I think that's what makes his point with Drummond so fair, is that it's not, if you're in that locker room and you've been competing and maybe you're overachieving a little and you're thinking, Drummond's been a big reason why, and you get told, you know what, we got Jared Allen now, and we like him. He's young, but so we're just not going to play the guy who's been an all-star anymore. We're not going to play him anymore. I could see why that might bug some guys who are trying to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, the other thing too that I thought Draymond brought up, that whether directly, indirectly, but I think he made a good point, is just I think, if not necessarily the three of us, the royal we, sometimes I think do overlook how disruptive being traded can be for guys.
Yes.
Like, I mean, just like the idea of your livelihood can get drastically changed at the drop of a hat, at the whim of your employer, sometimes through no fault of your own. And I recognize that every job has things about it that can be mentally taxing, and I recognize people can get transferred. But the difference is, if you work a normal job and you get transferred, it's not a public transfer. And you don't have, you don't have the entire world debating whether that was a great transfer for your employer, or like whether, oh my God, I can't believe
they just sent Johnson to the Tennessee plant. Now, we're going to break that down.
Yeah. I mean, like, for real, though.
You're not going to hear about, you know what, Jason got moved to a different company because his salary fit. They didn't really want him, but you know what? They just threw him in there.
Jason got moved to Sports Illustrated in a salary dump. I mean, I'm sure you hope that's the case.
Yeah,
not getting moved.
Yeah, we don't have our, we don't have that's the, and we don't have to report in 48 hours either.
Right.
It's not, I've known guys who've gotten traded. They're like, yeah. My friend, he's just staying at my place. I'm living in a hotel in Toronto or wherever I got traded. And it's not like I can just go ahead and say, you know what? Hey, new team, I need about 2 weeks to get adjusted. A lot of cases they're leaving their kids and wherever they are because they're in school. The family stays. They go live in a hotel. And I know they get paid a lot of money. And so people think that erases those issues, but I couldn't imagine if I woke up tomorrow and got told, guess what? We're trading you, to, to Sports Illustrated. You got to move to New York right now.
Yeah. Next 48 hours.
Yeah.
Assuming you pass your physical.
Yeah. Get some clothes together. You got to move right now. You can't bring your kids. No, get out here.
I just I love the idea too of the Athletic hoarding young writers to try to trade one for Howard Beck.
Well, but think about it.
We're packaging Law Murray, Jordan Rodriguez, and a bunch of other people, and we're sending him to Sports Illustrated for Howard Beck.
And then I go on Twitter, I'm like, we got Howard.
Or
when I got to follow up with a post, I'm sure I'm going to miss Law. He's a great guy.
Well, we gotta win now. We gotta write now.
Remember when the Chris Paul traded with the Clippers? You see all those guys. We got Chris Paul. Like, poor Eric Gordon. Damn. Hell yeah, we got Chris Paul. And
a couple of years ago, when the Lakers and the Pelicans were in very, very public talks to try to bring in AD midseason. And guys like, B.I., Lonzo, Kuz, Hart, they all know, they are being actively shot. Remember Brandon Ingram against Indiana? He was at the line and they were chanting, LeBron's going to trade you. And Ingram's like, well, yeah, if he has his way, he is going to.
And LeBron's just sitting there and they're making all the little gifts about,
LeBron's doing this.
Yeah.
LeBron's actually egging on the crowd.
And remember, this is back when
find a lie.
Yeah, this is back when they would ask Kobe, "What would you do?" Kobe, I'd trade all their asses for AD.
Kobe was telling people in random parking lots, they weren't even asking, probably. That guy was just loading groceries into his trunk, and Kobe stopped and started yelling at him.
Jason Kidd.
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. All your friends are looking at you like, "Dang, we cool and all, but damn, that's AD."
Yeah. I do like it when guys are honest enough to be like, yeah, I'd trade myself for AD. Like, I can be honest here.
Yeah. Draymond was one of those guys, too, when the whole thing blow up with him and KD happened. He even said in an interview, he was like, you know what? If I was the Warriors, and he said, I would get it. If you had to choose between me and KD, I'd have traded my ass, too.
Right.
He said, I'm Draymond Green. I'm Draymond, but that's KD. You don't, if KD wants to be here, you don't choose me over KD. So, I mean, some players get it.
The last question on this, because we got to ask you about the Dodgers before we let you go. The one of Draymond's points, though, I think, was that players get kind of crucified for this stuff, and that nobody's really on their side in this. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this is that most, I think, media, or at least a lot of the media that I have seen, a lot of prominent media, actually came out and supported him. And to me, at least, and tell me if you disagree, I think if Draymond does his rant 10 years ago, the reaction from the media that he was sort of talking about is vastly different than it was today. I mean, I think he had a much more sympathetic audience now among media and fans than he would have 10 or 15 years ago, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think a lot of times the media is easy to pick at. The media, I don't remember. I know there are people who were on AD about wanting out of New Orleans, but I think generally we all understood why he wanted out of New Orleans. I don't think there were people saying, "Oh, come on now, just give him 4 more years, AD." they right. Just might get it right. I mean, I think people, we generally understood why James would want to go to Brooklyn or Philly. I mean, it made sense. I think we understand. I mean, most times I think guys get crucified for how they go about doing it. Like I said, James was in Vegas. I mean, what did you? I don't know anyone who was going to be like, oh, you know what? Go ahead, James, just party until they trade you. No one was going to say that. And I just think the fact that he just kind of blew off camp at first, showed up when he showed up. Yeah, he got vilified for that. Maybe I can get AD being vilified in New Orleans, but they got over him.
Look, even like Kyrie, because Draymond brought up how, it had been reported that Kyrie was dealing with, mental health, mental well-being, however you want to put it, during that period of separation from the Nets. And I think the reaction to that, you saw some support towards it, you saw some skepticism. And I do think that whenever you hear about it having to do anything with mental well-being, mental health, even with somebody like Kyrie, who can provide, who has provided reasons before where people would look at him kind of sideways, I think when you start hearing it's something like that, you should always err on the side of giving a player space and the benefit of the doubt. But then the problem is he was seen at that birthday party for his sister and his dad at a pandemic. Or during a pandemic at a club.
Right.
And that's where it all falls apart. So it's like even somebody like Kyrie, where you're bringing up a point that matters, it's better served if you're talking about somebody like
the
Kevin
Nets
Love or DeMar.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're talking about like DeMar DeRozan or Kevin Love, who've been very outwardly, transparent about the issues they've been dealing with, except the fact in the case of Love and DeRozan, I think they've gotten all support. I haven't heard anybody, trying to criticize them or, calling them weak or soft. I've seen very little of that.
And I think even with Kyrie, generally the media was very, considerate and cautious about when they heard it with a mental health thing. Like you said, it didn't come up where people started going, hey, what's going on? Until you see the picture at the party, and then he shows up on the Zoom for the DA. Right. And people start going, and then you got Nash saying, I haven't talked to Kyrie, but look, well, we just saw him on Zoom. I think in that case, any of us, if I told my bosses tomorrow I need a mental health break, or if I told them that yesterday and they turned this on right now, they'd be like, okay, you just told us you were dealing with so much. You looked fine on there.
Yeah, but this is how you decompress. Like you come, you talk with us for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
throw on your Dodgers hat and you have a good time.
We're promoting The Athletic. I mean, they've got to give you at least a little bit of points for that.
I would hope. I would really hope they would, but you never know.
You know what happens? You know what happens at that point, Jason? They dump you in the Beck trade.
Yeah, I then become a problem, and I'm a problem in the in the editorial room. If they got to do something, you know what? We're gonna sell.
Put you in the cone of shame. That's right.
We're gonna sell low on you. You know what? Yeah, even if we don't get back, if we get a couple of copy editors, and we just got to get you out of here. We'll deal you for like some up and coming prep writer who might have potential down the road. But we got to get you out of this locker room.
Are we trading Jason Jones for 60 cents on the dollar? Yes, but sometimes this is just what you have to do as an organization. Sometimes
it's addition, by subtraction. We just got to get him out of here. We just couldn't have that voice and that problem in our locker room anymore. Those NBA Zoom meetings were just getting problematic. He was, he was
We're very
interrupting
concerned
people.
About his influence on the younger writers at the Athletic. There's like an up and coming 19-year-old podcaster that they were extremely concerned with spending too much time around Jason.
I do like
Jason was cursing with them, and he just had him at Summer League a couple of years ago acting out.
I like the idea that somehow a bunch of journalists would be really upset at the idea of being paid to stay home. Wait, you want me to do what? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine.
If you insist.
Right. All right. Well, you showed up tonight, and you got your Crenshaw shirt on, which is excellent. It's a great looking shirt. You've got your Dodgers hat on. I didn't realize this. Like spring training starts like tomorrow or something.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
like crazy.
It's time for Dodger baseball again. Or I'm just like, didn't the season just end like 70 days ago or whatever it was?
I think I don't know. I don't know what any of this means, but like, they brought back JT, they signed Bauer. The Padres did all their Padres stuff. Where are you? First of all, how did you celebrate? Because this was the strangest of all World Series titles, since '88 and all that. How were you able to celebrate this thing?
See, because I wasn't back home. I was up here north by myself. My kids. I dropped my kids off with their moms, and the kids got to see me be as happy as ever. They were like, "Oh, they must have." My kids were like, "Wow, we've never seen Daddy so happy." They're just like, they're like, because I've turned my kids into Dodger fans. Their first baseball games were all Dodger games, so they don't know any better, which is good for me. So I actually got some Snoop Dogg gin. And I poured some of that.
Like his own gin?
Snoop has his own gin?
He has his own gin, yeah. It's like a strawberry or something like infused flavor.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
I mean, on one hand, that sounds awful because strawberries and gin sounds like a just horrendous combination. On the other hand, it does mask the taste of gin.
Which is what it does for me. I could have whatever fruit it is wrong. Yeah, because I don't drink gin generally, but I was like, for this, I got to drink something, Southern California based because I haven't seen this since '88. So I did that, and then I recorded a Kings podcast where I was partially inebriated and very belligerent because my co-host was a Giants fan. He kept on doing the whole "this doesn't count," and I'm like, okay, of all people who know about asterisks, it should be the Giants.
Ooh.
I'm like, we really don't want to do this. I'm like, we don't want to do this tonight. Just go ahead and accept the fact you're going to be bad for the next 5-6 years or whatever it's going to be. And maybe someone will care about, your fake, sellout streak you had at your stadium by the water.
How do you feel about their chances of going all the way again, defending their title? I think
just like the last, 6-7 years, they should be right there again. I mean, if this rotation is, pans out. I mean, what is Kershaw like? You're 4? I mean, 3
he might be. If Bauer pitches like he did last year, Kershaw.
I am skeptical that he will.
But if he does, then Kershaw is your 3 at worst.
Well, I mean, depends on. Remember David Price? He's on that team.
Yeah, if David Price is, if David Urias,
Price is, it's not hard to imagine a world where Urias is actually a little bit better than Kershaw.
Yeah. I'm just imagining you get a 4-game set against the Dodgers. You're like, okay, maybe we'll miss Kershaw. Oh God, we've got Bauer, Price, Buehler.
It's Urias. That is truly an embarrassment of riches. Like it is.
I'm all for it. I'm all for
it. I forgot May.
Yeah,
like he's a thing.
And then figure out how, are we going to roll with Kinley? You got someone ready to, that's my one question about him.
Yeah, but even if it doesn't work, then you can throw May in the back end of the bullpen. You can do all kinds. Like, did you see the over under for their win total? Like, everybody puts out their own, but I saw one today. Over under for the Dodgers, 103.5.
I saw that. Yeah,
that is insane. I've never seen anything even close to that in one of these projection type things ever.
I think I'd take the over on that.
Doesn't feel like a dumb bet. I gotta be honest.
That lineup is still going to be that lineup. I mean,
it's insane.
Plus, I think for so many of those guys, especially Kershaw, but a lot of them, just getting that win, that World Series win banked, and having the definitive proof that they could do it after so many opportunities getting close, or so many high-profile flameouts. And look, we know a lot more context now with what went on with Houston and stuff like that, which I think also too, in a way, helped them. They were no longer seen as chokers; they were seen as robbed. And I think as much as they were pissed about it, I think it was a different kind of pissed. But now, for a lot of these guys, just knowing that they've done it and not having to deal with that pressure of finally breaking through, they may be able to play in a way that just they're going to come out of the gate hot and just maintain that the whole year, because they don't have to worry about anything now.
In the way they came back against the Braves too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've been through everything now, and even that fiasco game against the Rays, where I think it's about to be over, and the relay, all that stuff happens, and they still come back and win the series. I just think now, like you said, there's a level of calm about them probably now. They're like, you know what, we've done it. We know, even if something goes crazy, hey, we'll be okay.
All right, so here's where I've been trying over the last few days to find the thing that here's where they might be vulnerable. Here's what I came up with. You talked about the back end of the bullpen, which matters less now, at least through the regular season, and I think you can accommodate that for the playoffs if Jansen isn't what you need him to be. Here's what I came up with. You lose Jock, and you lose Kike.
Mm-hmm.
It puts an enormous amount of pressure on Chris Taylor to be good in terms of recapturing that absurd amount of versatility that they had in their lineup, where they could really mix and match and move guys all over the place. In the outfield now, it's Bellinger and Betts, which is great. AJ Pollock, who Andy and I refer to as Bird Bones, because he always will get hurt. Inevitably, AJ Pollock this year he's going to get hurt. AJ Pollock's going to happen.
You got to have four outfielders if AJ's one of your outfielders.
Right. And so you got to move guys around. You want to have that third guy, fourth guy, whatever. Meanwhile, in the infield, what if Gavin Lux isn't great? Chris Taylor's going to have to be really good to fill. But this is you want to make a list of first world baseball problems?
God, these are half world. It's right. First world feels like too big of a number.
Our utility infielder might not be good enough to do everything all the time is about the only thing I can come up with that is a major potential flaw for this team.
Our go-to utility guy isn't quite as good as Kike Hernandez, one of the best utility guys in baseball.
Kike and him.
Well, no, but I'm saying
they had two of them before. Now they only have one.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Our utility guy, who's still got a lot of utility, he just may not be as good a utility player as Kike Hernandez. Oh, and by the way, a lot of teams don't even have a utility guy.
So with that in mind, though, Jason, are you still taking the over?
Yes. Yes.
Did you decide to add more? Did you decide to add more?
I wouldn't add. I'm never taking the over. I mean, just that rotation. You still got Bellinger, Muncy, Betts, Seager, Turner. I mean,
Gavin Lux is too cool a name not to be good, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
I'll say this: if they don't start playing him, they need to trade that dude, because all that is happening.
He's going to play this year.
He better. I mean, he better play regularly. Better play well. I mean, Brian and I covered the Dodgers, I believe, or we were close enough to it that we can remember when Edwin Jackson was considered this untouchable prospect within the Dodger organization. He ended up like 15 different teams.
Isn't he still in the league?
I don't actually. I think he is.
I think he is.
I think he actually.
I mean,
is.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
He's not anymore, but to bring things around full circle, how old is Edwin Jackson?
38.
Actually,
Andy?
38 sounds good. I'm going to say 38.
He's 37 and a half. He's 37 in 160 days.
But remember, there was a period where
this was in 2003 when he broke in with the Dodgers as a 19-year-old. 2003.
There was a period where Edwin Jackson really was referred to as untouchable in that organization. I remember they turned down deals for that guy. He ended up a journeyman's journeyman.
He played for Tampa, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Nationals, Detroit, the White Sox, Arizona, Atlanta, the Cardinals, Oakland, San Diego, Baltimore, Miami, and Toronto over the course of a 17-year career.
That's like the whole damn league.
That's almost all of them.
He hit damn near every division.
Yes. And look, it's great that he had such a long career, but I cannot emphasize this enough. He was referred to as untouchable. He turned out quite touchable at the end of the day.
Yeah, I always say in any trade, give me the guy who can play now. Don't give me potential. Give me the guy who can play now.
How did he make $18.5 million as a 36-year-old in 2020 with the Cardinals? That doesn't seem right. He made $97 million, Edwin Jackson.
Oh, yeah, he's had a great life.
Yeah.
I'm not sweating that. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
See the country? Literally.
Really did.
The whole thing.
He's
travel around.
Two countries. He's been to Toronto. He's been in Canada. He's been there. Both coasts, the Midwest. He's hit everywhere.
There's one very
born in Germany. This is good.
Very well.
I want to write a movie about this guy.
I don't think you want to do that.
No, that feels like
I don't think the Edwin Jackson story has enough drama or enough of a hook.
No, the plot twist, he got traded.
A lot. A lot.
Let's go back when you were a Dodger and they weren't going to trade you, and then you eventually, got traded.
Got traded a lot. All right. Jason Jones covers the Kings for The Athletic. Sorry we kept you a little long, but
no problem.
If you put the hat on, that is sending a signal that Dodger talk needs to happen. Oh, okay. This has been asked 3 times in the chat. Ask Jason who should walk out champions at WrestleMania. This must be something that people know the answer to.
Oh, who should walk out? That's a good one. Who should? And think about that one.
Who will the writers decide, Will?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's who I would pick and who's actually going to get picked are generally two different things. I've got no problem with Roman Reigns on one end. On the other show, though, I would go something completely different. I'd go Keith Lee. It's not going to happen, but I would go completely out the box for on the other show. But no one cares. And then I would go Bianca Belair and for one champion, and the other one I'm not sure. But
I'm old.
Yeah,
I know who Roman Reigns is, but
I've heard of that.
The other two guys you mentioned, I have no clue who they are.
All you got to know was that they actually did a good thing by turning Roman Reigns into a heel.
Okay.
Andre agrees with me. Andre agrees with me. So I'm all with that. Yeah.
Well, he was a good guy for a while, right? Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and no one liked him as a good guy. Well,
because didn't he do that one PSA about being a great daughter? Being a great dad to your daughter and playing.
Yeah, he's doing a little tea with his daughter.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason I know who Roman Reigns is. That commercial.
Yeah, and a lot of my female friends know about him because they tell me, well, who's that hot guy with the long hair? I'm like, I don't watch wrestling to know about his hair. Even my mom loves Roman Reigns, and she's like, "Oh, is Roman Reigns going to be on this show?" I'm like, I don't want to talk about that with you.
That's how everybody talks about Kelly Oubre.
I hear that all the time up here. Someone's like, "Do you know Kelly Oubre?" I was like, "No, why?" "Oh my God, have you seen his eyes?" I'm like,
I showed my wife.
I actually haven't looked at his eyes before. No, I haven't.
I showed my wife a picture, and she was like, "Oh." I get it.
No, that's where you realize, and we will let you go after this, but like the work ethic these guys have, because if I looked at Kelly Oubre, I would just be a model and not have to do any of the work these guys do. Like, I would just get paid a lot of money to just, walk on a runway, wear certain clothes, maintain a certain weight, and that's it. Like, you have to work out, but you don't have to do these type of workouts. Like, Kelly Oubre is a much more competitive person than the average guy, because most people, if they have the opportunity to get paid a lot of money, one of which is physically demanding and the other is not, you're going to take not.
Who doesn't choose to skate through life based solely on their looks when given the opportunity?
Well, I guess Kelly doesn't. So,
right, that's my point. Like, I was never granted that opportunity.
Yeah,
I had to try to get a job.
Yeah, I've got friends up here who are just like, oh my God, they have Kelly Oubre. I'm like, why do you care about Kelly Oubre? Like, there's this whole thing on Instagram about him. I'm like, I've never really studied Kelly Oubre like that.
Really good looking.
Thanks to some of my friends up here, I've gotten quite the Kelly Oubre education.
He's really damn good looking. He really is. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, hey, I'm not young, tall, and athletic with Kelly Oubre eyes, so I can't relate to him.
I am 0 for 3 in those. Jason Jones covers the Kings and the NBA for The Athletic. This was a ton of fun. We'll do it again. We'll steal another one of your off nights.
Please do. Yeah, because if not, I'll end up just watching wrestling or playing 2K and trying to figure out how to make the Lakers better on the video game.
Yeah, as we always tell people who say that, be careful what you wish for. Tomorrow, Alex Kennedy will keep up the NBA talk. We'll go through the Lakers Nets game on Thursday, and Friday is George Sedano, and a lot of great guests lined up.
We are going to talk about with George specifically what the fuck's up with Florida.
Yep.
Just explain Florida.
George is going to explain Florida to us. We're hoping it becomes a recurring segment. So that'll be on Friday.
I've had a discussion with several of my Florida friends, and they're just like, man, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to bring George on, I guess, to apologize for the state. Again, Alex Kennedy, Basketball News, joining us tomorrow. Again, thank you to Jason Jones. Read his work at The Athletic, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Donk you, Needleland.